grateful that you're here. You are one person
Thank you,
who
Anu.
I've watched you grow. I've watched you
Yes.
talk your talk, move in the most graceful manner. The latest ad that I saw of yours was that of a penis on your Facebook. And I sat down and laughed. I sat down and laughed. And I said, in our beautiful India, there is one girl who dares to do this. Most of the times, it's the men who will put the penis photograph and send it to you to kind of insult you, or to send it to you to kind of show how big their dick is. And yeah, you get all kinds of people
Yes.
sending
Yes.
you messages on the Facebook or elsewhere. Hi baby, I'm really really sweet, and then they'll come a photograph, and mine is so many inches. I really appreciate you putting it openly for people to understand a lot of things. I've always wanted to know, how did you become who you became? And because I'd seen you growing, I thought, what better way to cover this than to kind of put you into a story of timid to TEDx, because
Yes.
that's been my journey. So over to you, Niyati, and I really am honored, as I said, to have you on this forum. Thank you so much. Go ahead.
Totally, totally my honor, Anu, for you considering me and being here. As you said, we've known each other for many, many years. And yes, you literally have seen me grow. So when I joined the Venus Club, where you were a part of it, and it was a very initial time for me when I began my journey as an educator. And the timidness was carried forward a little bit. Gopu is here, even he knows about this and how he also probably has seen me through this journey. But thank you once again for having me here. And I was so thrilled when you told me that the let's have your topic as timid to TEDx, and you know how I jumped over it, and I said yes, that's exactly how it has been.
Yeah.
So very quickly, just to say this, that in school I was genuinely a very very timid girl who was more about just observing her space and putting her head down and doing her job. To that extent that sometimes the teachers would mix up names, and I have taken beatings for other girls whose names start with NI. And even if I would go back and tell my teacher that it's not my book or it was not my mistake, I would not speak up upon, like, I mean, I got hurt when you like tag zapped me like that. It hurt. And I still remember that, the whole redness and the ear and the lunchtime when my friends were asking me what happened to you, and I'm sobbing and crying. But I think these were those experiences which kind of gave me this somewhere I took this decision that enough of keeping quiet and just being there as an observer. Somewhere I need to voice it out. And very beautifully you also mentioned something like how Aarti is, she's fantastic, but she's not speaking. Your mom's like that. I think a lot of us are like that in some space or the other, where we don't speak. And sex education also came to me from the same space, like, why is nobody talking if it is so important? And fortunately, unfortunately, I also got to know only after a few years of my first child being born. So somewhere I was pretty shocked, like, how come I don't know about this? you know Considering myself to be an aware parent, and a parent who had promised her child that I will be there for you as a support, and you will not need to go anywhere. You can question me whatever you want on this face of earth, and I will be there to support you and answer you. And then when I figured out that nobody's talking about it, I was like, hello. I didn't know, because there is genuinely very, very few people who were talking about it, and they were mostly doctors. Doctors have their own way of teaching and own way of, expressing. It's biology for them. Not all doctors, obviously, but majority how it used to be conducted. But when I started understanding the challenges of parents, it became like there is a part of bio, then there is a part of values, then there is part of life skills of how you will decide, how you will take decisions. And then I thought, rather than going to the adults who have jumbled and complexed their life to an extent where it takes a lot of time to come out of it, why not work with the children who are the hope for tomorrow, who can bring that fantastic tomorrow, an informed tomorrow, an empowered tomorrow. And that's how I began my journey as a sex educator with children and their parents. So
Wow.
literally, and of course, because of which I also, I was not ready for a TEDx, and somewhere it was there in the back of my mind. Somewhere I may be manifesting it, and there came one gentleman on LinkedIn. I still don't know who he is. He just kind of manifested for me. He's like, Niyati, you have to be there. And within a month, I got the offer and I was on TEDx. So it's been a fantastic journey from really, really a timid girl, and not only timid in school, but even at home. So there was a lot that went into making who I am today.
So, Niti, can you take us through your childhood? I mean, how was your dad? How was your mom? What is the impact of your dad's nature on you, your mom's teachings on you? If you can just briefly take us through your mom and dad and your
Sure,
childhood. Thank
sure,
you.
sure. So I was born and brought up in Mumbai, Bombay then, and we were in a joint family till I was about 10 years of age, and then the family separated for the lack of space and everything. And my parents and three siblings, we all lived together in Sion, and so till it was a joint family, I had always seen the women, in the kitchen doing the household work, the men going out working. My grandfather was somebody, you couldn't cross him if when he's having his meals, even if it was just through like one room to the other, he should not see you crossing. To that extent, we used to, sit inside the room and very quiet, not making any sound, because the men have come home and they need the quietness. They are tired. So we all children would just lock ourselves inside the room till Dada had all his food. He had his own way of being in the house, but that's how I was brought up in the initial years. How, and then slowly, but I think my major part of growing up also happened after we moved out, where now my parents were independent on their own, and that's where slowly we figured. I figured what my dad's nature is. Of course, I was growing also by then, what my mom's nature is, and a lot of it, I think I tell all the parents the same thing, but I have experienced it in my life that I have taken most of my characteristics from my parents. So the characteristics I've taken from my dad is being spiritual, going deep into thoughts to understand the whether it's root cause or what the story is or the empathy for people. I just have to dive down. I cannot stay on the superficial level and work with anybody or be anybody's friend for that matter. I always dive deep in. And I remember my dad used to have these early morning breakfast sessions with me. And we had a small window on my, so this is my dining table. There's a small window, and mom used to be in the kitchen, which is on the other side. And three of us would have a session like this. So mom's serving from the window, from the kitchen, and me and my dad are on the table and talking and discussing. And he would read articles from Gujarati magazines or newspapers. So I also feel that I have a lot of Gujarati root because of that, the way his language and the way he explained things to me. So that is what my dad was, a part of what my dad was, which I closely hold dear to my heart, and I miss it. Nobody will know how much that is, but I miss him so much. And my mom was always a housewife, but the strong point about her was she was so giving. She's just about giving, and she's very childlike. What is seen is how she is. It's there's no second layer to her. So when a child gets angry, you can see it on the child's face that he or she is angry, and so does my mom. And in that whole time, when between 10 years and 25, when I got married, I have only seen her fight for her children. Fight as in, I study, like she studied in a Gujarati medium, so my children will always study, I want them to study in an English medium. She thought ahead in future. She was modern that way. Both my parents were very liberal. And I think a lot of space that they gave me as a girl also became one of my characteristics, where I'm very comfortable talking about this topic of sex and sexuality. Not that they ever spoke to me. They have not spoken to me. In fact, the first time I got my period, my mom just told me how to maintain myself. There was no explanation of why it is happening. But at the same time, she gave me a lot of space to be. And so did my dad. He would sit with me, give me the hot water bag, read something to me when I used to have my cramps. So there was a lot of liberty around me to be who I wanted to be, whether it was discussing marriage or children or any of that topic. And so, yes, my mom was a very, very strong parent that I look up to, and she's influenced me big time, wherein my children's happiness comes first and everything comes after that. So it helps a lot even when I'm doing sex education, because it helps me to know whether my child is comfortable to listen to me or no. If he's not or she is hesitating, how I can go back with a lot of patience. I don't know where she got all that, maybe from her mom, but a lot of patience to sit down and talk to us and all of that. So that's the happy part of mom and dad, obviously. Then there was this other side of the parent that also affected me big time as a child. So being a timid child already, from I think the first memory I have was about 2.5, 3 years old, where I was bullied in my early school age, and I would not speak up. I would not tell anybody. I would not share that I'm going through a lot of things, and little children are harassing me as a little child, but I wouldn't speak about those kind of things. But from there to then my dad having this nature of, he would speak less. He whatever discussions we would have about life is a different aspect of him. But there was this other aspect where he would not share or express anything from his end, which did not allow me to understand him very well. And because of that, there were a lot of decisions that time. We daughters were not asked for whether you wanted this way or this way. It was always announced to us like, this is what's going to happen. And I did not have the guts to ask him that, why not like that? So today our children are very different. They have the liberty to sit across us and talk to us like an adult, that why do you say no, and why cannot I go to my friend's house, or why can't I go for that party? But I did not have that liberty to ask him questions. And for a long, long time, and when he would get angry, his anger was all about keeping quiet. He would just go into his shell. I think most of our dads do that, he would just go into his shell. And that time period of 1 day, 3 days, whatever it would be, it would scare the life out of me. Like, when will he become normal so that I can become normal? We would wait for him to cool down. He would not yell. He would not. There was nothing beyond that, but his silence would kill us. So that part of dad kind of somewhere got into this little child, that I can't tell him what I want. Otherwise, I don't know what next will happen if this is what he's doing when I'm talking to him. So that was one part. And as I grew up, obviously, there was a little more guts into my system, and I started talking to him and everything. But I remember there was this time after my graduation, very immediately after my graduation, where I was not, we did not have the environment of a career, a girl having a career in my family. It was a very, very happy environment, but it was just obvious that after graduation, I'll be married off. It was just accepted. There was no ill feeling about it. Somewhere probably I was looking forward to it also. But after my graduation, I just had this inner desire of going out and doing something for myself. Didn't just want to sit at home. I was already helping mom in the kitchen, doing the housework. Whatever little help he wanted in his business, I would give him all that help. But I wanted to do something on my own. And I approached dad one day and I said, you know what, I want to do fashion designing. And he's like, oh, so you just want to go to that tailor's shop and sit there and work with all those laborers. This is almost 20, 23 years back I'm talking about. And they'll be go like, you want to go there, or, mazduro ke saath kaam karna hai tumhe. And I was already doing that for myself. So what's wrong in it? So the modern child is like, so what's wrong in it? And dad is like, you have no sense. You don't know what happens. You're not going to make a career out of it. You're only spending time. And because I was a little more adamant about it, and he's like, you know what, I'm giving you 6 months. In 6 months, if you give me so much money, if you earn so much money, I'll allow you to continue. Otherwise, you can't do it. And I took it up as this enthusiastic youth, challenge. Like, okay, I'm going to do this. Aaram se ho jayega. I'm so good at it. I'll get orders like that. And reality hit. I did not get my orders. I did not earn that money. Right now, I'm laughing, but those were the days. I'm getting goosebumps when I'm talking. And after 6 months, my dad asked me, so how much have you earned? And I was like, I did not. And he said, then you have to shut business. He had already given me the choice, of starting something against his nature. And then I couldn't achieve what he had set up for me, which I had agreed upon. So I said, you know what, I have to give up because I lost it. Then again, I went back to him with another proposal. I want to do photography now. So anything to do with creativity, and I would keep going to him. And like a sweet little dad, and he would be like, okay, another 3 months, and this is what. And I would take it up and go back into the market, do everything thinking that I'm like super good. Again, reality would hit. And again, I would come back with the long face, like I couldn't do it. So after 2-3 attempts, he's like, ho gaya, abhi ab ghar baitu, do the housework, help me out. And that's about it. And I think that period was the first time ever I experienced the failure. Like I failed. Not only I failed, but I'm not good enough. Not that he ever told me that, but this whole situation read back to me that you're not good enough. You can't get that money, what's supposed to be. And your dad is giving you the opportunities. So I was already in gratitude about it and felt indebted, like he's giving me the opportunities and I couldn't do anything about it. So I went back into this whole belief of I am not enough. I don't know anything. I only think I know a lot of things, but I don't know. And I carried that for a very long time. I carried that for a very, very long time. So that part of my childhood is something, of course, after my journey into sex education and going through a lot of therapies and understanding self. And of course, at this age, we're also a little more wiser. The wisdom kind of came in. So yeah, now I'm way more relaxed than what I probably was 10 years back. But yeah, these were the few things about childhood that kind of shaped me up.
Take us through some of the difficult experiences. I believe that you also did endure difficult experiences, as I would call, in your own home. The reason I don't put a label to it is because you didn't put a label to it when I was talking. So I have no right to put it as a label. But this is just so that I'm sure these experiences propelled you and navigated you to wherever you are right now, because there must have been a need inside you to kind of reach out in many, many ways and understand yourself. And so if you can just carry us through whatever those challenging experiences were. Thank you so much.
Yes. So one of the experiences I had as I was about 8 or 9 years of age, and where I was physically touched inappropriately on my private parts by one of the uncles who was staying with me at that point in time in the house, like with a joint family. But he managed to do that. And as a kid, I wouldn't understand what's going on. It happened about 3-4 times. After that, he never touched me back again. But as a kid, I would not understand what it was. I knew it was not okay because nobody else did that. But I just did not know what it was. Who spoke about sexual abuse at that point in time? And even if my mom or my kaki or my dadi knew about it, nobody speaks to us. And I was the eldest sister in the 6 siblings we were at, in that house that time. And being an 8-9-year-old myself, my siblings were way younger. So, even when he would touch me, it would be just quiet. There was no sound or speaking or talking. He would just come, touch, press himself against me, and that's about it. Few things here and there, and he's off. But and within a year or two, I had already moved away from that home, and I was living alone with my parents. But and then it was all, you know, shoved under the carpet. Never thought about it ever again. Never had those kind of one more experience though. But even though I felt, even though that it did not give me the trauma of sexual abuse as a kid or as an adult, it definitely gave me the sense that it was not okay to do that to a kid. So when I heard about sex education and these formal terms of child sexual abuse, I was like, what? You know, I mean, what how could I not talk to my kid about it? He's already 6 years of age. I am talking of all the, you know, I'm taking care of all aspects of parenting. How could I have not told my child that in case if somebody touches you, come and tell me, I am here, you know, I will be there for you. And I had not. So I think that was one of the reasons I took up child sexual abuse as my first topic. And I reached out to many parents. And surprisingly, even though sex education was not very accepted as a topic 10 years back, I had a very struggling journey to take sex education out in the market. But I had parents and mothers especially who said, yes, talk to my children, because they probably didn't know how to talk themselves, and they had experienced it too. But for me, it became one of the reasons of why I should let children know what can happen to them and what to do. Because I remember, you know, we had a swing in the house. So I would sit on the swing and he would sit next to me. And when he would make me touch him, I used to freeze. I didn't get up from the swing and walk away. I did not push him away and just go to my mom or to somebody in the house to tell them what's happening. I used to freeze. I would not move. I would get scared even to blink my eye. So if I blink, what will happen? Of course, these are not conscious thoughts, but subconsciously, I would just become like a statue and not move. So 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 25 minutes, I wouldn't move. And that is not something I want any child to go through or any adult to go through. And I remember our discussion, Anu, where I said, I don't want anybody to call the person who has experienced sexual abuse a victim or a survivor. We are not survivors, people. We are fighters. We are freaking fighters. We lived
Absolutely.
that time. We lived that time, and we are standing right here with a fantastic family or whatever. There's always thousand things we can be grateful about in our life. In spite of having that experience, we still have the guts and the courage to live a very normal life. And so it's not being a survivor or anything. It's a very lame words and something that puts me down, that, oh, I survived that. I've not survived it. I fought it, and I'm okay. Yes, there was something that happened in my life. It's gone, done, over. It doesn't have to rule me today. So I was done with it. I, like, dusted and done, and here I am.
That.
So now when I talk about it, I don't come from this space of bichari, like, oh God, you were abused. No, tell me, okay, were you abused? So now what are you going through? Let's get you out of there. That's the energy I come with. And I don't want anybody to feel, oh my God, what happened to you? Nothing has happened. Something happened, don't carry it with you. Something happened, deal with it and move on, because you freaking deserve so much happiness in life. You can't carry that thing with you, you can't. So I think these were the emotions. And I think the strength that I have is because of the shift in the way I see it, the perspective that I get into it. I genuinely, if somebody sits with me for 1 session, 2 session, of course they have their own beliefs and they have their own emotions about it. They can come, they vent, but after that you can't be there. Then you have to move on. And I think that energy brings in a lot of happiness to people who are coming to me also. And it gives me even more courage that, okay, who's next? Does anybody still want to be? So that is where it all began, and how it is, turning and twisting and making me who I am today.
Wonderful. So from here, let's go to the place where you began working with your dad.
Oh yeah. So,
we were so caught up in that.
Yeah.
You know why that becomes important, Niyati? Because you may have chosen
Yeah.
whatever profession and you're brilliant with it. But there was something he was doing with you.
Yeah.
And when he was grooming you with his business, I have understood that there were many tools that you got from him, though they had got no connection with sex education, that really helped to groom you into the person that you are today. And I would really love to know about that journey.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, so after all those 2, 3 failures that I had with all my new business ideas, and he proposed like, okay, you want to do something? Okay, no problem. Let's do one thing. Join me with my business. And he was
Smart
an
man.
importer of ball bearings. Very, very smart man. And he said, join me. And he was an importer of ball bearings. I knew no B or G of a ball bearing. And I was like,
Can I just stop you for a minute? No
yes.
wonder you talk about the balls today.
No, nothing to do with that. But I like the choice of words. So when he said, you know what, you can join in here because nothing else is working, and I jumped for like, of course, for a second I was wondering where is all this coming from, but I jumped to the idea. I said, you know what, I'll come. If it is taking me out of the house and giving me something to learn and do something new, I am in for it. So from since like forever, I've been a very enthusiastic learner. It doesn't matter what the topic is, I want to learn a lot of things. And he said, I'll take you to office, but at the same time I was supposed to finish work at home in the morning, uh, go back home after office and finish work there, back home. So mom needed help, dad needed help, and I was also trying to make my space in all in between them. And I think I enjoyed that time too much. So how my day would be like, he would wake me up with the, so I used to hate it then, but I understand how I have become now. So he would wake me up with something like, Niyati, wake up, you have to send emails to somebody, or Niyati, wake up, we have to finish our Excel sheets. He was a big time techno crazy man. You know, he would love to explore all these new things that are coming in the market, and computers was obviously one of those things. And he had put me into one of the programming classes. I used to love programming also, and I had done a few languages. So I said, you know what, I'll, in my head, I didn't share anything with him that time, but in my head I'm like, I'll go to office and I'll do all these cool things. And so he would wake me up in the morning with work, like, come on Niyati, get up, we have to still finish work. But before so I would wake up and immediately, like, it's like waking up from bed and going onto his table to finish his work, because he's up since 5 in the morning. My mom would actually, you know, shout from the kitchen, let the girl brush her teeth, at least let her get up. And he's like, yeah, all that will happen, that's not important, this is important. Like, work was worship for him. And so I would sit for half an hour or something, get him, you know, all done. Mom's getting all paranoid over there, so I would say like, okay, now let me go get ready, help her in the kitchen. By 9 in the morning, I would leave for work. And ball bearing is a market that does not open before 11:30. So my dad is like, what are you going and doing? I said, there's so much work before the market opens. How can you sit at home and while away time, like taking 1 hour for breakfast and 1 hour to get ready? Come on, get moving. And he started coming with me early to office. And so we arranged. So he was a lazy person himself, but he got me to do a lot of work, because, you know, I was like that intern. He had 24 hours. Anything that would pop in his mind, the intern has to do it, you know, like, oh, you know what, I think we should do it this way. And I'm like, okay, come on, let's do it this way. And he made me make so many Excel sheets and Word files and emails. And he gave me all peon work in the beginning. He would make me remove papers from somewhere and file it somewhere, and I was not allowed to sit in the cabin with him. I was sitting with the staff outside, and he made me do all that. And I would pick up the phone like a secretary, you know, in that market. At that point in time, a woman in ball bearing market, it wouldn't happen. And even if there was a secretary, and she would be like, okay, hello, kaun bol raha hai, or, you know, de diya. And I go like, hello, good morning, Tarun Traders, all in style and everything. I was so enthusiastic. And people started wondering कि कौन है जीतू भाई ने किसको रखा है ऑफिस में. And I was kind of a little joke in the market, but everybody appreciated that so much because it brought in something fresh, something new. And I was very welcomed in the market and everything. While I enjoyed this part of it, I was extremely annoyed with not having time for myself. Either I'm doing dad's work or I'm doing the housework. There was very little time, maybe on a Sunday or sometime somewhere in middle he'll allow me to go on a call with my friends. So that was something that I don't want to remember. Uh, so that also made me a workaholic in nature. Today also I sleep with my thoughts of have I done everything for my children what they wanted. कुछ book तो नहीं भूल गई, कोई paper xerox करना तो नहीं रह गया. So that thought is still there at the end till I have to force my mind to go to sleep. Like go sleep, otherwise you won't be able to get up tomorrow morning and be there for them. Or else I will wonder whether I've emailed whoever I had to. And it's constantly on my mind. I wake up with the thoughts of work and children. I sleep with the thoughts. I'm continuously doing something or the other. So these are the few things I picked up from the way he made me do work.
Niti, I'm thinking you're here, and let's take how do you say? It's an opportunity, a big opportunity for everyone on the Facebook as well as on the Zoom. And why is it an opportunity? Not many people talk about sex. So let's talk about sex, baby.
Let's do that. Let's do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how would you tell?
Oh, yeah, go ahead. Question.
How would you tell a small child about sex? Let's say the child is 3 years old. How would you explain to him a concept of sex? Thank you.
So one is, I know 3-year-old don't ask questions about sex. So there is no reason to talk to them about sex. Just to simply understand.
Can you just take us through what's the right age to talk to children about sex? How should it be disclosed? What should be done so that people who are hearing today go back with something?
Yes. So few things. One is a child will ask you questions related or with context to sex and sexuality, but your answer will depend completely on the age of the child, what is their context of asking you the question. So for example, otherwise this will all sound Latin and Greek. For example, a 3 and a 4-year-old can ask you, how did the baby go into your stomach? Because, mothers are very enthusiastic when they see a pregnant woman, especially the mothers, who have already been pregnant. They will show their children like, see, that auntie has a baby in the stomach. Saw how big and nice it is. Not realizing that a child is curious in nature. The next question is going to be, Gaya kaise wahan pe? How is the child inside the tummy? So sometimes there are children who say the auntie ate the child, because it's in the tummy. So when questions like these come to you as a parent or even as a teacher or any adult, responsible adult, you can just say there is a special bag in every woman's body or most of the women's body. And in that special bag, a child grows. And how an animal or a bird lays eggs outside in the nest, this is mama's nest, and mama lays her eggs inside the nest. So the baby grows inside the womb, and once he or she is ready, it comes out of the body. Now, if the child is any older to 4 years old, then he or she might ask you, how does it come out? But till then, you are not talking about sex, but you are still explaining the concept of and being honest that this is how the baby is inside the tummy, and because it is growing, the stomach is also growing. Once the baby is out, the stomach will go back in its space. So you're doing so much of teaching for that matter. Uterus is elastic. The child may not know about these underlying messages that you've sent, that the stomach can go back in its place, baby is going to come out of the body, a baby is growing inside the body, and all of that has gone in this little explanation that we did. If the child then asks you that, but how does it come out? And I know most of the parents prefer talking about cesarean than natural birth, because they think natural birth can be so gross for a child to understand or hear about. But tell me one thing, is not the idea of cutting a mother's stomach and bringing the child out more gross and traumatic than saying it just slides out of the body through the vulva. The child will again understand that, oh, vulva can fit a child to come out. The child may ask also. Now, if a child is 6 or 7 years old who has now explored her vulva also, will know that vulva is small. How will the baby come out? Won't it tear? Won't it break? These are the questions that can come in. That is where the mother can always say, or father can always say that, no, it is like a rubber band, like an elastic rubber band. And that's how it stretches, the baby comes out, then it comes back to its normal space or its normal form, and everything is okay. Of course, C-section is also another way, which I don't think you should hide from your child, but cutting the body, removing the baby may not be the apt way of introducing childbirth to them. So talk about this natural phenomena and how wonderful your body is, who understands what to do when, and it's so beautiful. Nature is so beautiful, body is so intelligent. See how the brain and uterus are connected. You can make so many stories out of it. So that is how, when you explain children about these concepts, they understand it just like a natural phenomena, and you're still not talking about sex.
Very good.
If you have to talk, just answering your last question, when do you talk about sex per se? Either if the child is just reaching that age where you should tell them, which is about 11, 10 in today's times, 11, 12 in today's times, or just before their development, where the puberty must have already begun and they're already experiencing attraction, and you should explain the next level to them. And or when they ask you a question, so there could be a child coming and saying, what is sex, mama? I've heard about it. And if that child for any reason has intentionally or unintentionally watched pornography, that child may come and ask you a question, believing that my parents will tell me the truth. So it's very important for you as a parent to question, where did you hear about it? What do you know about it? And let me fill in the gaps, so that if there is something you have misinformation or wrong information about, I can correct you. So first, gain all the contexts of how that child knows about sex, and then go to educate them. And it's absolutely okay to talk about sexual intercourse to a child who is 9 and above. Not that it is wrong or bad to talk to younger children, but our society is not such where it will feed in information to the child. It's only a parent talking. We do not want children to go back to Google to know more about it. So around 9, 10 years of age in today's times, it's absolutely okay if you have to explain sex to your children. So don't hesitate. And it is a beautiful union of two people. Why not talk about it? Sex is not dirty at all. Sex is so freaking pious. And sex is our origin. That is our source. I mean, how can we even be shy about talking about it? Not at all.
Oh, I mean, there's a standing joke in Meta Health when we learn about the third level. It's all about sex, and at the end of it, we laugh and say there is nothing called soul healing. There's only something called whole healing. And what I'm talking here is about knowing your body well is a really important task. It's not about anything else. It's not about dirt. It's about knowing your body well. And somewhere we shy away from knowing what our body is about, knowing our anatomy. And I remember when we were having this conversation before, that there are women who don't even know from where the baby is going to come out. Is it like, how many holes do they have? And that's why I said it's all about whole healing, because they don't know what's going to be happening to their body. So just for those people who think, oh, if I kiss, I will become pregnant. Could you throw light for such children? How do you explain, like, oh, and I get a lot of cases where I see that children were put in bed with their parents and they were very young and they remember that mom and dad made love, but they didn't know whether that mom really enjoyed herself or she didn't, or dad really enjoyed himself. Most of them perceived that they were sleeping in the bed, and they even made stories like, we'll save our mom from our dad and stuff like that. And some of them were left behind with the impressions of the bathroom door opening, the bathroom door closing, and the tap voice, very typically what's happening. And then the child doesn't sleep and then sleeps, and you think the child is sleeping. Child is really not sleeping. And be aware, and this is why very loudly I'm today talking on the Facebook and everywhere. Be aware that your child may not be sleeping, and you may be not talking about it but doing it in front of him. And so
Yeah.
just think about that. Yeah. So Niyati,
Yeah.
can you throw light on that?
So Anu, at sometimes I do empathize with the parents living, especially in smaller homes where they have only one bedroom, and where I don't know if I'm audible because it's all frozen here.
No, you're audible.
Ishan,
Go ahead.
okay, perfect, perfect. So a lot of parents do come.
You've gone. That's called the energy cut, guys. It's really, really interesting how I've asked a very difficult question. She's gone. She'll come back. Don't worry. Till she comes back, I'm going to put a song for you that my aunt sang for me. And this must be very, very important right now at this point. So till she comes back, let's not. I requested my aunt who used to sing very well, or still sings very well, that can you please send a song for me? And she said, yes, I will. So I'm going to put this on. Hopefully you'll be able to hear it properly. Give me a minute. I wasn't ready for this. Okay.
Okay, am I audible, Anu? Can I go continue?
Please go ahead.
Sorry for the network glitches.
No,
So
it's
yes, we
like
were.
I call it the energy block completely, because it wasn't an easy question to answer.
It wasn't. So continuing from where we left, a
Yes.
lot of parents do tell me that Niyati, we have only one room and we do not have any other place where our children can go and sleep. So we ensure that they are sleeping and we are under our blankets. There is no way you're not making a sound. One, even when you're moving on the bed multiple times, you are making sound. And children do have the instincts, and most of the children have heard their parents, something's going on, they know about it, and many have seen shadows and silhouettes, or they have seen their parents making love. And as you very rightly said, Anu, there are many children who think that I have to save my mother from this man because he is hitting her, he is torturing her. They do not understand the concept or the process of lovemaking, and we also don't know what those parents were doing and what children the child has seen.
Okay, your voice. You'll have
There
to
are
repeat the
very
last.
very quick tips for such couples. Okay, am I audible?
Yes, you are. Just repeat the last bit, please. It's a heavy
Yeah, so
energy
I'm
cut.
saying,
Okay, this is not a question that you ask on an Indian platform, and this is not the question
yeah,
that gets answered on a platform like this. But I think there is no better platform than this. Let's just go ahead and talk about it.
yeah.
Yeah.
So so children are somewhere watching you, children are somewhere listening to you. So if you are in lack of space, for parents who have another room, even if it means it's the kitchen or the hall, please you change the room if you don't want to disturb your children. But in case if you have a joint family, if you have, ask, take one day in a week where you can put your children with somebody else. And like, if there are two brothers living together, have 2 days in a week where my children will sleep with you, your children will sleep with me, so all of us can get that space to be with our spouses, which is so important in today, in any, in the married life. If you have grandparents have to come forward to understand, I got my son married because I wanted him to have a family. And you very well understand the relationship between a husband and a wife. I request these grandparents to come forward to help these couples out. Then there could be a Friday night or a Saturday night where your children can go to your friend's place. Their children can come 1 week. You just go for a holiday sometime. So there are multiple ways to ensure that children are not a part of that. because we don't talk about it openly, where for them it is a natural thing to do. They have no idea about what's happening. Nowadays, the children are watching it on pornography and then watching you. What is it that's going on in their mind? It's not even, you can't even imagine what all they are thinking as children. And sometimes there are children who say, I don't like my parents anymore, I can't get that image out of my head. We have counseled such children, which is hurting them, and it hurts us when we hear them. So, but Anu, what is a bigger issue here? The husband and the wife don't even want to come together as a union. There are so much of emotional baggages that we carry about our own spouses, that most of us, after having children, somewhere your biology clock, your body tells you enough, you don't need it anymore. Sometimes it is the emotions that you don't get, and if you are an emotional person who attaches emotion to sex, then you will not want to have sex. There are so many reasons where a couple is not, they don't have sex. And if it is just happening, it's just happening. It's either out of duty or out of, I just have to give in, or any other reason. So there's no planning, sorting, understanding behind the act, which is where I think sex education plays such a big role, because it's not explaining your body parts and the actions. It's explaining how to take this responsibility, how to maintain hygiene, how to be a little more empathetic, how to understand, to focus on your partner. So you focus on your partner focuses on you, and you both are happy. How difficult can that be? So I think parents definitely need to put in a little bit of energy when it comes to making love in front of your children. Unless you are that parent who openly talks about it, I think even then sometimes, because they don't see anybody else doing, we don't know what the child is making, what kind of stories he or she is making it, in their own mind. So be a little mindful about this. Yeah.
Thank you so much for that. That was really needed. I'm going to ask you a last question, difficult question, and then we can open the forum to the audience so that if they have any difficult questions for you. Uh, to be really honest, Niyati, over a period of time working, like I said, in the third level of meta health, you cannot have a third level, or you cannot have a level of psychological issues without talking about sex.
Yeah.
Because that's part of the whole program. And I'm so thankful to God that my education was such that I did have child development as part of my program where I was studying. And then later in the day, we did have this whole meta health with me. I cannot even thank enough how much, what kind of insights that brought for myself. You said something very interesting, and you said at 9.5 we must tell people. Now, somebody like me who started her period at 8.5 because I was sexually touched and didn't know what was happening to my body from left to right and right to left. Of course, I've left that story far behind. But out of curiosity, how do you prepare a child? Because I realize that even then I wasn't prepared, and there may be children like me who need to be told, like, maybe there are times when mothers are touching. I've heard gross stuff like mothers sleeping with their with a child who is mentally not okay because they can't find a partner and he's now become grown up, and they don't know how to deal with their aggression, because if the sexual desire is not taken care of, it's going to turn into aggression. And I've also heard of men touching their daughters. It may be out of not even knowing that they're doing it, out of just a sheer habit. How do you deal with this place where, how can you make it easy for a child? Let me put it like this. How do you make it easy for a child, and how do you make it easy for a parent? What can you create? Because that's so important as part of sexual manners, as to your boundaries have to be requiredly told to people, that what are their boundaries. How do you I'm not even talking about correction.
Yeah.
That's probably going to take time. How do you make people aware that this is a big not okay? Thank you. I really appreciate. I know I'm throwing very difficult questions.
No, no, not at all. I mean, this is what we deal with, right?
Yeah.
So, Anu, what I have understood about any sexual relationship is the mind and the body does not recognize relationships. The sexual urge is individual. How you how what do you do with that energy is a decision or a choice that an adult makes.
Please mute everybody. Everybody, please mute. Okay,
Yeah.
I've done it.
So I'll just repeat it. Sexual energy is very individual. It's personal. It's mine. Okay. My body and my mind does not recognize relationships. Sexual urge is from the body. It's coming. Obviously, I'm not saying that I do not have the power to decide what I want to do. I definitely have the power. So what are we dealing with are two things. One is naturally the sexual urge that is there within me. Now, this is not something I can change. This is not something that I can control. This is not something that I can say, okay, today I want so much and tomorrow I don't want so much. But it is there in me. So if I have that energy and I need it to channelize it, I need it to come out in some places. Where am I living? What are the rules and regulations of that space? What is the community asking from me in this space? Is what the society is expecting from me. So if I am in India, I am in Mumbai, I'm allowed certain liberties of dressing up and being, or being out later in the night, hanging out with whoever I want. But there are parts of India where girls are not allowed to leave after sunset for, of course, obvious reasons. They are not allowed to dress up the way I can dress up here. Or somebody in a Western country where they are even more open and comfortable about their own body. So it's a very, very individual decision that one takes. What I have understood the basis of sexuality, Anu, is it's not, it does not recognize relationships. So when a father is with a daughter or a mother is with a son, I am not justifying anybody. I think it is the worst thing to do if this is for your gratification. But if there is any other reason which is genuinely no other way but only by you, then maybe, I don't know. But definitely, children are those people who do not have the maturity to understand what you're doing to them. They do not have a say in it. They cannot give you a consent. Even if a child likes it, you can't do that to the child because you don't know how it is going to unfold when the child becomes an adult. If we were a society where it was okay, where there was no marriage, where there was no rules and regulations, it would have been a different setup. But here we are living in a community, and we humans live in a community. We don't live alone. And if we want to be in that community, somewhere the respect of that community should come in. If you are not okay with that space and what it brings along, shift your community. Go somewhere and live where you feel more open and more accepted. But when it comes to children, there is something called different sexual orientation, where yes, there may be few people who are attracted to children. Fine, I get it. You're attracted to children, I get it. But it's a decision you make whether to act on it or just sit quietly with it. Yes, you may not be able to control it or change your attraction or your orientation, but you can sit at home and not do anything about it. You be in your private space and you do what you need to do without touching a child. Now, this much common sense anybody should have. But unfortunately, this common sense is not common. And that's the reason we have so many pedophiles and we have so much of sexual abuse, because it's always that somebody has to be their object for my sexual gratification. They are not your object. They are somebody who is offering their body to them for your gratification. You freaking should be so grateful to that person, but not a child. Not a child. A child does not understand what's happening with them. A child does not know what to make out of it, of what is happening with them. A child is not here. He's not in a space where he can say it's okay or it's not okay. So I know the bad, the uncomfortable part of this is we can't be with our children 24/7. So we have to ensure that how you prepare a soldier, for a war, that way you have to prepare your children in case if it happens. Don't you worry. I am here. You come back to me no matter what people say. You come back to me and talk to me. We will deal with it together. Of course, it also depends on the child's age. So when the child is young, like 3 and 4, you only teach them the basics. These are your private parts and nobody should touch you. If somebody touch you, come and tell me. That's it. You do not have to do anything more than that. But as the child grows, please tell them. And you know what, this story doesn't end with children. It continues even after that child becomes an adult. And most of us have been a part of this abuse in one way or the other. In somewhere in our life, we've seen this happening to us. And when we know that, we become paranoid, but we don't stand up for ourselves and for our children to say, I will ensure your safety. I'm going to prepare you of what you can do. Have these tools in your bags, or, if in school, if it happens, go to the staff room directly. We will tell them, go run away from there, but they don't know where to run away, where to go and run. So give them that direction of where they need to go, what do they need to do, who will they speak to. Anu, you and me have spoken about this. There are so many things in our lives we don't even know who to go and tell. We don't
Yes.
even know, can I even speak about this? Even today at this age, in spite of
even today
calling ourselves empowered women, even today
Absolutely.
there are times when we don't know how to go and talk to people. Imagine
Absolutely.
what a child must be going through. Imagine how helpless or how confused that little soul must be. So empower them and tell them nothing. It stopped right there. The person tried to touch you and it stopped right there because you knew what you should be doing after that. Even if it
Absolutely.
is a teenager, even if you have a boy, it is not only happening to girls, it's happening to boys too.
It's happening to boys. It's happening. And
It's
I'm not
happening.
saying it's happening. I'm not saying why it's happening. I'm just saying, can we bring in tools over here so that it does not? And if you can protect your kids and protect yourself, create a person who you can talk to and be open about it. And
Absolutely.
let's create a society which is allowing that to happen at least. I cannot and we cannot police everyone. In fact, you're so right, Niyati, that there are times when we go through situations again in our life, maybe, and can't talk about it and don't know whether there are so many things. Should you spoil someone's life? And they may have their families. You don't want to do that. So with that note, I will thank Niyati hugely for her contribution today. And this is the timid girl who went to talk about the penis and the vulva in the most appropriate manner. And she's the one who goes around teaching. And we support you completely, Niyati. I'm sure each one of us over here are in awe that you can talk about something so beautifully, so gracefully. And that's what makes Niyati. Many more, how do you say, I hope and to God that you get more and more and more and more of whatever you want, and go ahead with your flame, and many people connect with you and join with you to take what you really have set your heart for. And I salute you for your dedication, for the passion with which you do what you do. Aarti, there's a message for you on the Facebook, if you can please look at it. And there is someone who's grieving for the pet, so if you can help them out. With this, if you can wait, Niyati, till the end of the session so we can throw the questions at the end so that I can bring in the other speaker, if that is okay. Or would you like
I
to?
will just come back. I will come back. My daughter needs a little bit of medication. I'll just come back. I may not join the Zoom, but I'll be on the live. Yes?
Okay. Wonderful. Wonderful.
Thank you, Anu. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Teji. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Let's go to